roles for this upcoming Arizona basketball team. Let's get to it here on Locked On Wildcats.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it Locked On Wildcats. I am your host, Mike Luke. Happy Thursday to you all. All right, we're going to talk all Arizona basketball here. We've been talking a lot of Arizona football, and rightfully so, but we do need to get to some Arizona basketball because, as we know, that is the lifeblood of the Tucson community. And so why not start off with looking at the roster and then figuring out, having a little bit of fun with it, what the minute-by-minute expectations are for the players on this team, and we'll kind of work back from there. All right. Now, Azuolas Tubelis, talked about him a great deal. Arizona needs him to be an All-American caliber player this year. He needs to be somebody that can go into a game and exert his will, exert his influence, and get you 18-9, 20-10, but consistently be hovering around that double-digit mark of 20-10. And honestly, there's no reason why he can't do that. We've seen him do it before. You saw him do that against the Mobley brothers at USC, where he played Evan Mobley and Isaiah Mobley, who are both in the NBA. Evan Mobley, who is on the verge of superstardom in the league, and a freshman Tubelis put 31 points and 8 rebounds on them. So, again, he's going to be out there mainly because there's nobody on the roster that can replace him. Plus, he is the best player on the team. Now, I think a lot of people are concerned about, well, he didn't look very good last time we saw him, and that's certainly a fair concern because against in the NCAA tournament against TCU and Houston, nobody likes saying it, but there's no other way to put it. He wilted. The moment looked too big. Players were talking trash in his face, and basically by the end of the game in the second half, in must-win situations, you could tell Tommy Lloyd was just like, all right, well, I can't play you. So that's the last that we saw of Azuolas Tubelis. He's obviously back. So if you're Arizona, you're hoping that he can recapture some of that form, but not only recapture some of that form, actually improve upon that. Now, I don't know that I view Azuolas as an NBA player. I could maybe see him being kind of a poor man's Domantas Sabonis, but I just don't know that the next level athleticism there, and I don't think he's ever going to be able to defend anybody. So Arizona could have him back for another year, and if you're Arizona, you are more than okay with that. But big things expected for Azuolas Tubelis this year, and rightfully so. He's going to be getting about 30 minutes per game. Then the other one is Kriisa. Not nearly as good as Azuolas Tubelis, but you could make the case equally as important. He is the only point guard on the roster, true point guard, I guess, being that Kylan Boswell isn't going to play much this year because he's obviously dealing with a foot injury, but need to be able to pencil Kerr in for 30 minutes per game. His shooting numbers weren't nearly what you would like if you're Arizona, from just looking at it from this point last year. And, if you're Arizona, I think that's this second real year with him, he should be able to improve those numbers. I mean, he's hovering around 38% from the field, 33 from three. But when you watch him, his form is very good. He shoots it with confidence. It wouldn't surprise me at all if both those numbers shot up by 5 to 7 percentage points. Something like that. Offensively, he's a little bit better playmaker than people give him credit for, and that's certainly something that he should be given kudos for because he can. He had games where, especially in the pick and roll, where he was very good, where he was dynamic, and he was able to chip in 5 assists per game this year. Now, I think you're fine with the 5 assists per game. You mainly want his scoring average to go up a little bit, and you want him to be able to shoot a better percentage. Defensively, he's always going to be a little bit of a problem because he doesn't possess the lateral quickness / strength to be good in those spots. So that's always going to be an issue. But he is more than good enough, though, to get 30 minutes per game. And you know that Tommy Lloyd likes him a great deal, which is a big part of it. So both those guys, Azuolas, Tubelis, Kerr, Kriisa, 30-minute per game guys. Then I got two players locked in here at 27 minutes per game. The first is Pelle Larsson. I was wrong on Pelle. I thought Pelle sucked. He definitely doesn't. The healthier he got, the more he was giving me the middle finger, and I was more than happy to accept that middle finger. Pelle is a steadying influence on the court almost all the time. We'll get to that almost in just a second. But he's a good three-point shooter, not a great, but a good three-point shooter. He's a pretty heady defender, and he's not a bad finisher in traffic. He certainly, has shown that he can play. He's earned Tommy Lloyd's trust, and he's going to play a lot this year. He was the Pac-12 Sixth Man of the Year. You're going to be seeing him start this year, probably put up 11, 12 points per game. The only thing that I don't want to ever see from Pelle Larsson is more than 2 dribbles. When he dribbles it more than 2 times, he turns it over. Don't do that. So you get 2 dribbles. You get 1 dribble to the hoop, 2 dribbles max. But anything more than that is playing with fire, and we don't want to play with fire here. And again, he certainly, and take what I'm saying for what it's worth, because I was wrong on him. But 27 minutes for Pelle Larsson, and as long as he's here, it's fair to say that he's probably going to be playing around those type of minutes. All right. Then you got Courtney Ramey. Courtney Ramey, transfer from Texas. He was brought in to not only improve Arizona, but I think to help out in a lot of the areas where Arizona might be lacking. And Ramey comes in with a reputation as a defensive player who can also get into the lane and can create for others and get his own shot. Not great at it, but good. We just talked about it with Kerr, Kriisa, not a great defender. Never going to be a great defender. Courtney Ramey should be able to take on the other team's best offensive player. That should certainly be in the cards for him. He is, he should be one of Arizona's best players this coming year. And if he's Arizona's second best player, I don't know that it would shock people. When Kerr, Kriisa is going against teams like UCLA or Oregon, where you got guards that are probably a little too much for Kerr, Kriisa to handle, that's where Courtney Ramey is going to take over. Now, you might look at Ramey's numbers at Texas last year and see he averaged 9. I would look at the previous year where he averaged almost 12.5 and shot 40% from 3, because that was in a style, that was in an offense that was much more conducive to scoring the ball. Courtney, with Shaka Smart, Courtney Ramey is going to be playing a lot of minutes this year, and deservedly so, because he's who Arizona targeted early on in the transfer portal, and it makes a lot of sense. So at that center position, you're looking at an Oumar Ballo or a Henry Visser. Now, both guys are interesting for different reasons. First, I think that Oumar Ballo is going to play about 23 minutes per game. I think he plays more than Visser. You watched last year, and I was another guy that I didn't expect much from Oumar. I thought that he would be roster filler. I thought that he would be a player who I thought he would be roster filler. I thought he would be a player that would maybe get you 23. My alarm is going off. Hold on. Sorry about that. That's never happened before. Hopefully it won't happen again. But with Oumar, big Oumar, he is offensively, he's not great, but he finishes everything around the basket by dunking the ball, which is an underrated quality with a big man. He sees the ball. He wants to dunk the ball. Big fan of seeing things like that. Then defensively, he showed last year that he can have some monster games. I mean, you saw the 5-block performance, broke the Pac-12 tournament record for that, as it is. So there's things to work with. Now, last year, when the game got sped up, there were times when Oumar could look a little lost, where you could tell that he just wanted the game to slow down a little bit. The game's not going to slow down, but maybe that means that Oumar is going to pick up the pace, because you see him on campus now. He's definitely lost some weight. He looks fantastic. I think he's going to be in better shape. And it'll be interesting to see what he can really reach, because I think this year will be indicative of the kind of player that Oumar Ballo can be for the University of Arizona. Again, I don't know what that is, whether that can be an all-conference player or whether that's 9 and 7. But either way, I expect Oumar Ballo to get the majority of those minutes. All right. Now, Henry Visser. Visser is the mysterious European or the mysterious international player that everybody kind of knew about, but nobody wanted to report on. Kudos to Jack Murphy for getting him. He's got an NBA future. He's about 6'11". He can move. He can shoot. He can finish around the hoop. He's cagey. He just kind of understands basketball, and you can tell that basketball comes naturally to him. Now, he's also very, very skinny, and he's coming from overseas, where obviously there is a little bit of an adaptation process to it. What should expectations for him be? I think about 15 to 17 minutes per game. Again, he's got a higher upside than Oumar Ballo, but I think it's going to take him a little bit longer for some of the reasons that we discussed earlier. But when I watch him, I think that his arrival date is 23-24 as far as being a true difference maker and playing 30-something minutes per game. By that point, he'll have a full season under his belt, and he'll be more, he'll just be stronger. He'll be more mature, everything that goes into that. Again, I don't see him playing as much as Oumar Ballo, but make no mistake, Visser's going to play, and Visser's going to play quite a bit because you're trying to get him ready for that second year. Plus, he's good enough to be able to play right now. That's kind of where you are with a Henry Visser. All right. Now, before we're going to get to some of the guys that are coming off the bench, but also wanted to remind you of public service information. Don't drink and drive, people. I mean, in this day and age, Ubers are cheap. You don't have to worry about hurting somebody. You don't have to be a cool person. Everybody knows somebody that has been affected by a DUI, and you don't want to have that on not only on your record, but on your conscience, because again, it's so easily preventable. If you're going to go out and have some beers, great, no problem to it. But just make sure that you get an Uber, make sure that you keep everybody safe out there, and it allows you to have an even more enjoyable time because you don't have to worry about driving. So look at it that way. All right, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with you. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. I am your host, Mike Luke. Happy Thursday to everyone out there. All right, we're continuing our minute-by-minute, player-by-player breakdown, what to expect from this Arizona men's basketball team. Now, the next player up, Cedric Henderson, out of transfer from Campbell University. Before we break it down, I look for Cedric to get about 20 minutes per game. Now, you might think to yourself, Campbell University, what does that mean? What do they do? Well, it's Campbell University, but he averaged 15 a game last year, 5 rebounds, a couple of...
You are live.
This has been he averaged a couple assists, and he was able to look the part against Duke. If you have an opportunity, go watch the highlights against Duke. Go watch the game when Campbell played Duke, and you could see a guy in Henderson that looked like he could play for Duke. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to be the first pick in the draft. I'm not saying that he's even an NBA player, but there's a lot to work with there, especially when you're talking about replacing a player like Dalen Terry. Dalen Terry was that perfect jack-of-all-trades type that not a lot of schools have. And Cedric Henderson, you're hoping, if you're Arizona, can be that guy. Can he be able, is he able essentially to guard the other team's best perimeter player when he's in? And is he able to chip in offensively, and not only chip in offensively, but be able to do it from a facilitation standpoint? If he can do that, you might be looking at a lot more than 20 minutes per game. But I think that's a pretty good number to slot Cedric Henderson in right there. But again, I think that was one of the more underrated coups of the entire signing or the transfer portal. You could tell that Arizona zeroed in on who they want, and they got Courtney Ramey and they got Cedric Henderson. Now, the guy that's going to be competing with Cedric Henderson for minutes is Oumar Ballo. Now, a lot of the times in this day and age, and we've talked about it before, But you get parents that hold their kids back 3 or 2 years, and they're showing up as a 20 and a half year old freshman. Well, that was not the case with Dama Ball. He was a year young. He showed up as a 17 and a half year old. And Tommy Lloyd talked about it from day one, that he had a lot of expectations for Ball. He thought the Ball was going to be able to be that player at some point. And when you watch Ball, you could tell that that's the kind of guy that Gonzaga has flourished with. Now, by the end of the year, Ball was starting to get some more minutes. He was starting to get into that, and some meaningful minutes. And when he got the opportunity, he knocked down threes, he knocked down open shots. Coaches don't put players like that in, especially when you're dealing with a good team. Coaches don't put players like that in there if they don't expect them to play and have a considerable role next year. I always think back to when Jason Terry was a freshman at the U of A, and Lute Olson at the end of the season, the end of his freshman season, started sneaking JT in there from time to time, and it paid off with I think a 25-point performance against Washington towards the end of the year. The following year, Jason Terry is starting for the academically ineligible Miles Simon. Rest is history. They go on to win a title, and JT was a big part of it. Now, I'm not saying that Adama Ball and next year's Arizona team is going to be able to do that, but there is a lot to like, though, about the potential of Ball and what Tommy Lloyd does see in him. Again, kind of like with Cedric Henderson, the minutes will be up to Ball. If he comes in and he's improved to, the capacity to which he can improve, you're looking at something different. Maybe he's getting 20 plus minutes per game. Maybe he starts getting 13, 14 points. I don't really know, but everybody knows that the potential is there with him. So that's kind of where we see everything right now with those guys. All right. Now, we got 3 more players that we need to break down. But first, I want to tell you about BetOnline Sportsbook. That's the place you want to put down your bets. The BetOnline Sportsbook has been around forever. It's where people are comfortable with it. You can find in-game lines, futures, all kinds of props. The BetOnline Sportsbook is where you want to be. Again, I think Arizona football is going to be over 2.5 or 3 wins. There would be no better place than this BetOnline Sportsbook to be able to make that one happen. So again, check it out, BetOnline Sportsbook. One of the great things about it is that it's easy to use and it is very easy to navigate, and you know what you're betting on. Check it out. We'll be right back with you. We're going to break down the 3 final players on the roster. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. I'm your host, Mike Luke. All right, now we got 3 more players and minute expectations to break down. The next one is Filip Borovichinen. Now, great name. They call him Philly B, and that's what we're going to call him as well on Locked On Wildcats. I have no clue what to make of Philly B other than the fact that Tommy Lloyd is probably the best international recruiter in all of college basketball, and he went over there. He saw Borovichinen, and he offered him a scholarship. And there's quite a bit to like. When you watch him, you see that he's a legit 6'8". He can handle the ball. He can move. He can get in and out. He can shoot. There's a lot to like. You just worry about his adaptation to the American game. I could see him getting 3 minutes per game, or I could see him getting 18 minutes per game. Neither one would really surprise me, just because you don't really know what to expect, but there's a lot to work with there. And he's certainly a guy that you'd want to bet some on his future. And Kylan Boswell, another guy. 5-star point guard, reclassified so he could join Arizona this year. As many of you know, Kylan has Kylan's dealing with an injury, so he's not going to even be probably ready to play for a while. But for me, it was always about getting Boswell in here so he can be ready for next year. And I think that was the U of A coaching staff's thought process as well, and they're smarter than me, obviously. Kylan Boswell, when he is healthy, I look for him to probably play 5 to 7 minutes per game. But again, that payoff then is the coming year. And then finally, we got Dylan Anderson. A lot of people have soured on Dylan Anderson. I have not soured on Dylan Anderson. I would like to see him have a redshirt year this year. He's got great coaching for the first time, and he's got a coach that believes in him. It's just going to take some time. Again, he's not the strongest dude in the world, but he's got some skills. He's not a great athlete, but he's also not a bad athlete. He can move pretty well. There's a lot to like about his game, but I would like to see him redshirt. Okay, That's pretty much the breakdown on how I see minutes. We'll be talking a little bit more about that tomorrow and some more recruiting, or probably talk a little bit of basketball recruiting as well. But everybody out there, you have a very happy Thursday, and you have been listening to Locked On Wildcats.